Hey everyone, mukbang car owners, it's horror time again. Today we're diving into one segment of the anthology horror film Tastes of Horror. This movie consists of 6 short, razor-sharp stories. Each one exposes the ugliest sides of human nature in full detail. Now let's jump into our first story, Gluttony. Yura is a mukbang streamer with 1 million fans. With her sweet face and a body that never gains weight no matter what she eats, she's raking in money hand over fist every day. But she's still not satisfied. One day, she invited her fellow top streamer N.Shakirah, who has similar traffic. The two plan to team up for a big collab, to deliver even better content for the viewers. But who could have guessed that right after N.Shakirah sat down and her seat wasn't even warm yet, Yura pulled up a video. It was N.Shakirah's own mukbang daily upload. With slow-motion playback and constant pauses, it was obvious that N.Shakirah's so-called Big Eater title was faked using post-production editing tricks. Facing this public execution from fans, she said, "It's not great to just watch someone eat the whole time anyway. Plus, I wasn't feeling well that day." But little did she know, Yura was just waiting for her to say that. She immediately suggested they do a live eating challenge right then. Not long after, the same amount of hot dogs was placed in front of both of them. But fake can never become real. As expected, after 10 or 20 minutes, not only did Yura gain a huge wave of traffic, she also pocketed 100,000 won from generous donors. After getting what she wanted, Yura stopped pretending altogether.
당신처럼 먹고 뱉고 씹고 토하고 그렇게 난리치는 사람들이 있으니까 나처럼 제대로 먹방하는 사람들이 지금 의심받는 거 아니야. 그쵸, 여러분?
The video ended with N.Shakirah completely humiliated. After this encounter, Yura skyrocketed to fame in the mukbang scene. But on that very live stream day, the comments said, "That person is back at her old tricks again." She didn't want to engage with the topic at first. But then, a big donor suddenly gifted 500,000 won, wanting to see the two do a PK battle. Seeing money coming in like water, Yura first thanked the donor profusely. Then she decisively accepted the PK invitation. But the two didn't meet in person to fight it out. Since they were both live streaming, they still had to keep up some image. But N.Shakirah's goal was crystal clear. "I'm here today to eat against you one more time. We have to settle who's the real big eater." But now Yura just has to sit there, say a few nice words, and milk these fans dry without lifting a finger. Why bother trashing her body for another stunt like this? So she originally wanted to refuse. But the big donor offered 10 million won as the prize, to make them go at it. To show sincerity, the donor first gifted each of them 1 million won. Seeing her big donor about to jump ship to someone else, with no choice, Yura had to agree. And to ensure fairness in the match, the foods for their best-of-5 series would be chosen by the big donor. When the first round started, both were still acting normal at first. They were eating fast, but it was still watchable. But as they traded wins back and forth, the two gradually dropped their idol image. After all, with millions of won on the line, making them puke and eat again was just a simple request. Until the 4th round began. Expensive salmon was piled in front of them like it was free. Even if you think about it, even if the sucker donor is paying, wasting it like this has to feel excessive, right? But the two were enemies meeting with extra hatred. Plus money was backing them up. In this war without smoke, N.Shakirah still came out slightly ahead. While waiting, she opened a video. It turned out that after their last match ended, Yura, to force her out of the scene, had bullied her relentlessly. The goal was to keep all the mukbang traffic for herself. After learning the truth, the viewers started criticizing Yura one after another. Seeing this, Yura was completely stunned. She never expected her persona to collapse so quickly. However, what crushed her the most wasn't the netizens' comments. It was the cake in that final decisive round. Because from her expression just now, it was clear that the previous stuff had already pushed her body to its absolute limit.
저거만 쓰는 건 좀 반칙 아닌가?
Yura used up the very last bit of her strength, and finally ended this last live stream. And in this competition, Nyum Nyum started off with 900,000 won, excluding scattered tips. But what none of us knew was that Yura's bottle of Ace of Spades was actually sent by Nyum Nyum. Ever since she was bullied last time, she injected toxic liquid into the champagne, and then delivered it right to Yura's hands via express delivery. For today's PK battle, she spent every last bit of her savings, and even surgically modified her stomach into a cow-like one. Under continuous binge eating, the lower half of Nyum Nyum's body no longer looked like a normal person's. But in front of the camera, she was still the goddess in the viewers' hearts. Next up is the second story, the 11 p.m. gym. Hyungu is the new resident in this apartment. He specifically chose it because of the free gym. But the security guard immediately poured cold water on him. After 10 o'clock, the gym is no longer allowed to be used. As a white-collar worker, Hyungu doesn't get off work until 9:30 at night. Rules are dead, but people are alive. Worst case, he could just sneak in himself. But little did he know that just 2 days earlier, a sexy young woman was running hard on the treadmill in the gym. This scene was seen by the security guard and the boss on the surveillance feed. Worried about the electricity and water bills, the boss ordered the guard to turn off the lights. From then on, no lights after 10 o'clock. They hoped this would discourage residents from using the gym. And now the time has reached 11 o'clock at night. The lights suddenly went out. The woman looked back in confusion. She wasn't paying attention and tripped on the treadmill. But the fatal part was, her long hair got tightly caught in the treadmill. In the end, with a sickening snap, the woman died right there on the treadmill. To keep the apartment's property value from dropping, the two of them decided to cover up the incident. However, all of this was completely unknown to Hyungu, who had just moved in. After a tiring day at work, he just wanted to vent his frustration on the gym equipment. It was at that moment that no matter how hard he pedaled, the machine wouldn't budge. But after spotting the beautiful woman nearby, suddenly he could pedal again. But then something unexpected happened. The machine just wouldn't stay fixed, no matter what. He was about to ask the girl next to him for help, but the woman who had just been on the treadmill disappeared in the blink of an eye after he turned his head. At the same time, the lights in the gym went out.
저기요!
Just as Hyun-gu was about to give up, the lights suddenly came back on. Everything returned to normal. Before Hyun-gu could figure out what was going on, the security guard's voice came from behind.
뭐예요? 10시 넘어서 사용하지 말라니까.
But Hyun-gu believed everything that just happened. Was the guard in front of him playing tricks? In reality, the guard was the one who saved his life. Back in his room, Hyun-gu suddenly remembered something very important. His phone seemed to have been left in the gym. In this day and age, where you can't live without a phone, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and head back to the gym once more. But after searching everywhere, he couldn't find his phone in the spot where he left it. What was even stranger was, Hyun-gu noticed, his phone was on the treadmill not far away. He clearly remembered. He had never gone over to the treadmill area. Just as he was feeling puzzled about this, something unexpected happened. He thought it was the guard messing with him again, but at that moment, a soccer ball quietly rolled up behind him. When he saw it was just a ball in the corner, Hyun-gu's racing heart finally calmed down.
또 하나 가겠군.
At this point, Hyun-gu's body was moving on its own on the treadmill, and right behind him was the very woman who had died on that treadmill. After Hyun-gu's death, the boss decided to lock down the gym.
두 사람씩이나 좀 무섭네요.
무섭긴 뭐가 무서워? 집값 떨어지는 게 무섭지 사람 죽는 게 무서워? 계약 연장하고 싶으면 입단서 확실하게 해.
With no other choice, the security guard had to give in to the boss's threats. But soon enough, the boss would pay a terrible price for her actions. That night, an energetic young guy showed up at the gym. He had no idea what had been happening there. Then his phone rang.
아들? 어디야? 오늘 입국한 사람이 이 시간에 어디 나갔어? 마미가 우리 아들 빨리 보고 싶어. 어디야?
Turns out the guy was at his own family's gym. Hearing this, the boss instantly panicked. But the guy calmly hung up the phone. Then time jumped to 11 o'clock at night again. Next up is the third story, Wish. The three girls in front of us are usually the best of friends. They love sitting together gossiping about everything. One day they came across a super viral video. They say if you follow along and dance once, your wish will come true. The only thing is, this dance looks seriously creepy. But that's not the point. The point is, Oh Young-bi tried it once. The next day, all the freckles on her face were gone. At that moment, the three of them noticed Oh Young-bi's boyfriend nearby. With her friends egging her on, Oh Young-bi confidently called him. She wanted to show off some couple sweetness. But not only did her boyfriend not pick up, he was laughing and chatting with another girl. Right away, she lost all face in front of her friends. But the final straw that broke the camel's back was that night, her boyfriend still wouldn't answer her calls. This made Oh Young-bi make up her mind. She would use the dance to make that girl die. While she was dancing energetically, she suddenly noticed the person on her phone screen seemed to have disappeared. It wasn't until the next day that Haeyul, after finishing her audition, ran into Bora and 2 police officers. Since all of them had solid alibis, and there was nothing unusual on the surveillance near Oh Youngbi's house, her death was ruled a suicide. But come on, who would gouge out their own eyeballs when committing suicide? Still, that's not the main thing. After Oh Youngbi passed away, not only did Haeyul receive the notice that she passed the audition, but Bora's social media followers also skyrocketed. Both of them were over the moon. They gradually forgot about their friend's tragic death. But one day things took a turn. One was about to become an internet star. The other was about to debut. Bora wanted to ask Haeyul to film a video together, just like they used to. Maybe it was agency rules that trainees can't appear casually, so Haeyul turned her down. This caused the former best friends to start hurling insults at each other. They even got into a physical fight.
영빈형 코 납작해지게 구독자 100만 되게 해주세요.
After stating her wish, Bora started that eerie dance too. At that moment, her dance was filled only with jealousy toward her friend, and her craving for 1 million followers. After finishing the last move, the person dancing on the screen had also disappeared. Suddenly, in the closed room, a gust of cold wind blew through. Neither of them had noticed what the video said. You can only make one wish. The next day came again. Haeyul's agency decided to select one trainee internally for the girl group. But there was only one spot. Hearing the news, everyone immediately pulled out their phones and opened that video. Their endings you can probably guess. Next is the 4th story, called I Didn't Do Well on the Exam, so my mom went crazy and gave me a huge beating. A few minutes later, Mom brought Yukyung an ice pack. Even though I hit you and all that, it's all for your own good. You'll understand when you grow up. Because her older sister studies really well. So while training Yukyung, she was half-heartedly responding here and there. Just as the military-style discipline finally ended, Yukyung wanted to hurry back to her room. At that moment, her older sister suddenly dragged her in front of the mirror. Not only did she harshly mock Yukyung, but she also told her that if she wanted to get good grades, she had to abandon her emotions and act like an emotionless machine or something like that. Already feeling down from getting scolded, now back in her own room, Yukyung's emotions completely broke down. She started losing her mind, calling out to the gods from afar.
만약에 신이 있다면요. 저 좀 도와주세요. 저 진짜 뭐든 할게요. 시험만 잘 볼 수 있다면. 저 좀.
The next day during the mock exam, even though she tried really hard, the pressure from her family still weighed heavily on her. Plus, the classmates next to her were mocking her non-stop, and even the teacher advised her that if it was too hard, she could just try again next year. Feeling malice from the entire world, she walked alone on the way home from school. Then a voice from behind called out to her. The girl with the tilted head told Yukyung that if she wanted good grades, she should sacrifice a 4-legged animal to her. At first, Yukyung didn't take her words seriously. But that night, she started having strange dreams. Bloodstains in a pool, and her mother sitting by the bed, stroking her head. But what was even worse, Yukyung felt someone behind her. She didn't dare close her eyes all night. But the next day she discovered that she had gone from failing to somehow getting a perfect score. This made her remember that yesterday she had accidentally stepped on and killed a frog. But right now, that wasn't the main point. For once, Yukyung had done really well on the test. Her mom first praised her own strict military-style management, then rewarded Yukyung with a steak dinner for the improvement. The next day, while looking at the animals in the display case, she suddenly recalled what her sister had said to her. So she steadied herself and walked into the pet store. Sure enough, from then on, every subject came back with perfect scores. After that, the once insecure Yukyung was gone forever. In her place was a desire-driven killing machine. With each act of slaughter, she got one step closer to the medical school her mother demanded. But on the night before the university entrance exam, the little rabbit Yukyung had prepared in advance was missing, and the pet store was already closed. She was frantic with worry. Then the thing that broke her happened.
학교 가져갔는데 해고 있어서. 뭐든 쓸모 있는 존재가 돼야지. 그렇잖아?
After saying that, her sister walked off arrogantly like she owned the place. She didn't notice at all that Yukyung's eyes were now filled with intense murderous intent. But then again, although her sister always enjoyed watching her get scolded and loved throwing out snide remarks, they were still blood sisters after all.
감정 끄고 기계처럼 감정 끄고 기계처럼.
Not long after, their mother came home from work. She still hadn't realized what had happened until she pushed open Yukyung's bedroom door.
내일도 만점이야, 엄마.
Next up is the fifth story called Rehabilitation. The story is about a girl named Ji-yeon who was hurriedly rushed into the operating room. Whether it was a car accident or something else, the story doesn't explain. But it looks pretty serious. The doctor performing the surgery had already pronounced her dead. Suddenly, Ji-yeon felt a bit of pain. You won't believe it until you see it. But everything below her knees was gone. When she woke up again, she found herself in a strange space. But no matter what, her whole body couldn't move. Luckily, the doctor was incredibly skilled and gave her new lower legs. Not long after, Ji-yeon realized that this wasn't just a sealed space. There was also a timer hanging on the wall not far away. At that moment, a woman walked into the room. She told Ji-yeon that she was the rehab doctor here. That's why her entire body can't move. It's because her brain can't send any commands. If Ji-yeon can't complete her rehabilitation before the timer hits 0, her brain will completely shut down. She'll end up wandering in an unconscious world. In plain terms, she'll be dead for good. And the treadmill right in front of her is the only tool for her rehab. Now she has to rely on sheer willpower to do her rehab exercises bit by bit. Since Ji-yeon has lost her previous memories, she can only believe whatever others tell her. But at that moment, she accidentally notices some out-of-place bloodstains at the foot of the bed. She lifts the mat and looks underneath. There are words written like, "Help me," and "Run away quick." But what's even more terrifying is that right above her, a huge eyeball is staring down at her. This scene makes the already confused Ji-eun even more terrified. As her emotions start spiraling out of control, Hanul presses a button, and she collapses with a thud. When she wakes up again, she suddenly realizes her legs are gone. But in the blink of an eye, her legs are back. However, she doesn't have much time left. As the treadmill's speed keeps increasing, and time ticks away second by second, Ji-eun ultimately can't hold on. She dies with a snap right there. Actually, back at the hospital, Ji-eun had already passed away. These researchers linked a lab rat's brain to Ji-eun's brain. Clearly, this isn't the first time she's gone through something like this. As for the purpose of this experiment, it's unknown. They don't even know if Ji-eun truly has consciousness. Next up is the sixth story. Also the final one, called Jackpot. On a night of pouring rain, Jin-ho, who had just won the big prize, wanted to rush home overnight. But the trip was too far, and the driver suddenly refused to take him any farther. He kicked Jin-ho out of the car. With no other choice, he had to spend the night at the motel right in front of him.
계세요?
Seeing that Jin-ho didn't look like a local, and with the heavy rain outside, the owner decided to rip him off big time.
10만 원입니다.
Jin-ho was stunned when he heard that. This was clearly highway robbery. What made it even worse was that he had no choice but to stay the night. After all, there was no ride-hailing app out here. Little did he know, he had already become prey on their chopping block. And this motel owner was actually Yura's top donor. But after spending a whole billion on her streams, he still hadn't even met her in person. Desperate to do unspeakable things with his favorite streamer, the owner now set his sights on Jin-ho. When checking him in earlier, he noticed Jin-ho carrying a bulging leather bag in his left hand. From years of dealing cards online, the owner knew it had to be stuffed with stacks of cash. At that moment, the taxi driver called the owner. It turns out the small casino, the driver, and the motel had formed a complete supply chain. Letting an outsider leave with even a single one was an insult to them. Since Jin-ho's account was frozen, he had no choice but to carry a large amount of cash. The driver on the phone said he'd bring a few thugs over. He told the owner not to alert their target. In reality, Jin-ho wasn't the first winner to end up here. But Jin-ho had no clue about any of this. He was still lost in the joy of hitting the jackpot. While Jin-ho was taking a shower, the motel owner sneaked into his room. But a slight noise made Jin-ho stop his shower. With no other option, the motel owner hid under the bed to wait for his chance. But what no one expected was that this phone call from the taxi driver would plant the seed for the unexpected events to come. That night, visions of winning 10 billion kept replaying in Jin-ho's mind. But what he couldn't figure out was why, after tipping the driver 500,000, the guy still refused to drive him home. Looking at the woman's lingerie stuck on the sun visor, Jin-ho suddenly sensed malice. Luckily, it was all just a dream he was having. But then, something unexpected happened. After the two made eye contact, they immediately started fighting. The boss, not playing fair, pulled out a small knife. Neither of them originally wanted to kill the other. But when they saw their 10 billion Korean won being snatched away by the other, Jin-ho didn't hesitate and picked up the small knife nearby. He stabbed it into the motel owner's body again and again. until there was no movement at all. Just as he was about to leave the place, the lit cigarette butt ignited the alcohol, starting a fire. And it had already spread throughout the entire motel. Fortunately, the firefighters arrived at the scene in time. They thought the incident would end there. But what none of us expected was the firefighters' act of helping carry the bag made Jinho feel deep malice. He felt like everyone around him was eyeing his money. To protect the sky-high fortune, Jinho resolutely ran back into the fire. He locked himself tightly in the room. However, what truly drove him to despair was, outside the window of this motel, there was actually a security grill. Seeing that he had no way out anymore, with no other choice, he had to go to the bathroom and turn on the faucet, hoping to protect both his money and his life this way. But the fire in the building made even the firefighters feel terrified.
지겹더라 우리 다 죽어. 쇠빠진 줄 알았네.
It wasn't until after the fire died down that the firefighters returned to Jinho's room. But there were already no signs of life here. In the bathtub, only a tub of beef bone soup remained. That's the end of the 6 stories. This movie abandons narrative depth, but through the splicing of unit forms, it conveys to us that horror originates from everyday life. All seemingly supernatural existences are actually the twisted desires in people's hearts at work. Movies are not the same as reality, but reality is often more cruel than movies.
更加残酷。